And that realization doesn't just bruise the ego, it confuses it. It's easy for someone to handle anger or sadness because those emotions still show attachment. When you argue, when you chase, when you cry publicly, it feeds the story in his head that you're still emotionally tied to him. It reaffirms that he still matters in your world. But when you stop reacting altogether, when your life seems full and joyful without him, that's when he feels the weight of what he lost. That's when it starts to dawn on him that your world no longer revolves around him. And maybe, just maybe, it never truly did. Maybe it was his own ego that needed you more than he ever realized. A man's ego thrives on the idea that he made a lasting impact. He wants to believe that losing him is a devastating blow you'll never fully recover from. So when he sees you at peace, not performing, not pretending, but genuinely living in freedom and grace, it challenges his self-image. It makes him question if he was really as unforgettable as he thought. It makes him wonder how someone he once meant so much to could rebuild so beautifully without him. This quiet realization is not loud or dramatic. It creeps in late at night in the moments when the world is silent and there's nothing left to distract him. He might scroll through your social media, not because he misses you romantically, but because he's trying to figure out how you're doing so well without him. He might casually ask mutual friends about you, hiding his curiosity behind nonchalant comments. He might even feel a strange unspoken ache when he sees that your eyes are brighter, your laughter is louder, your energy lighter. And none of it is because of him. It's because of you, because you chose yourself, because you realized that closure isn't something you wait for, it's something you create, because you understood that peace is more valuable than any apology, any explanation, any validation. And here's the part that hits even harder. Your peace isn't just about him. It's about you stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't seek external approval to feel whole. It's about recognizing that someone else's inability to see your worth doesn't diminish your value. It's about building a life so full that someone else's absence feels like a mere adjustment, not a collapse. That realization doesn't just bruise his ego. It wakes it up. It forces him to see that losing you wasn't just losing a relationship. It was losing access to a rare kind of loyalty, kindness, and love that not everyone gets to experience twice. Sometimes he will mask that hit with arrogance, pretending he's unbothered. Sometimes he will dive into distractions, convincing himself he's happier without you. But no matter how it shows up on the outside, inside there's a sting. Not because you're trying to hurt him, not because you're playing games, but because you stopped giving energy to someone who didn't know how to protect it, and you did it with grace, not with anger. And in the end, your peace speaks louder than your pain ever could. Your silence screams what 1,000 conversations couldn't express. And the man who once thought he would always occupy a part of your mind is now faced with the reality that you have chosen a life where he is no longer the center of your thoughts. And that realization, more than anything else, hits the ego where it hurts the most. When a man sees that you have moved on peacefully, something shifts inside him that he didn't anticipate. He starts questioning his choices. At first, maybe he convinces himself that he made the right decision. Maybe he told himself that the relationship had run its course, that you weren't the one, that something better was waiting for him elsewhere. These are the comfortable narratives we tell ourselves when we walk away, trying to cushion the blow of uncertainty with the illusion of certainty. But when he sees you not only surviving, but thriving without him, a quiet doubt begins to creep in, one that he cannot easily silence. He starts replaying moments in his mind that he once brushed off. The way you supported him when no one else did, the patience you showed when he was figuring himself out, the laughter, the little routines, the shared dreams that once felt so natural. And now with distance, those memories don't feel so small. They don't feel so replaceable. In fact, they start to take on a deeper meaning because now he can see what he missed while he was busy looking elsewhere. What he once took for granted starts to look like exactly what he needed all along. This questioning isn't always instant. Sometimes it takes time. Maybe he watches from afar as you start to glow differently. You're not chasing love, you're embodying it. You're not desperate for attention, you're content in your own skin. You're building a life filled with purpose, passion, and peace. And as he sees this, something inside him starts to unravel. He begins to wonder if he gave up too easily, if he judged too harshly, if he failed to appreciate the rare connection he had with you. It doesn't always come with big declarations or apologies. Often, it's a quiet internal storm, a gnawing sense that maybe, just maybe, he didn't choose wisely. He might start comparing. The new people he meets might seem exciting at first, but eventually he notices that something is missing. Maybe it's the depth of conversation, the effortless understanding, the way you made him feel seen and heard without him needing to ask for it. Maybe it's the loyalty, the way you fought for the relationship when times were hard, something he realizes not everyone is willing to do. Or maybe it's the way your love was never about possession or pride. It was pure, steady, and real. And once a man loses something real,
everything fake becomes painfully obvious. As he watches you move forward at peace with yourself, he starts to confront uncomfortable truths. He realizes that while he was trying to find someone better, he didn't understand that better isn't about flashier, newer. Better is about real. Better is about who stands with you in the storms, not just who shines with you in the sunshine. Better is about the quiet loyalty, the small acts of love, the unseen sacrifices that build something worth keeping. And he starts to question why he walked away from all of that, why he let fear, pride, impatience, or immaturity convince him that the grass would be greener elsewhere. Sometimes the questioning leads him to regret, sometimes it leads him to growth, but always it makes him realize that peace, your peace, is not a sign that you never cared. It's a sign that you cared enough about yourself to stop waiting for someone else to realize your value. It's a sign that you love deeply, but chose not to drown. That you gave your heart, but refused to lose your soul in the process. Your peaceful moving on forces him to see the strength he may have misread as weakness, the patience he may have mistaken for passivity, the love he may have taken for granted because it came so naturally. In his quieter moments, he starts to wonder if he confused familiarity with boredom, if he mistook comfort for complacency. Maybe he thought relationships should always feel new and thrilling, not realizing that true love feels like home, not a high. And maybe now, looking at you living your life fully, he sees that the very things he dismissed are the very things that make lasting love rare and precious. He may never tell you this. Pride often stands in the way of confession. But deep down, know this. When you moved on peacefully, you forced him to face the mirror. You forced him to sit with the weight of his decisions without the distraction of your pain or pursuit. You removed the safety net he didn't even realize he was relying on. The idea that you would always be there, waiting, wondering, wanting. And in that space, he begins to truly understand what he chose to walk away from, not just a person, but a connection he may spend a long time searching for again, if he ever finds it at all. When a man sees that you have moved on peacefully, one of the most profound things he experiences is a loss of power. Not the kind of obvious, dominating power that we often think about, but a subtle emotional influence, the ability to affect your feelings, your mood, your thoughts. Many times, without even realizing it, people grow accustomed to holding emotional power over someone they once loved. It's the kind of unspoken authority that comes from knowing someone still thinks about you, still aches for you, still allows your memory to stir up their emotions, that invisible thread, that quiet pull. It keeps a part of their ego alive. It gives him a sense of relevance, even after things have ended. But when you move on peacefully, without rage, without dramatic exits, without desperate attempts to be seen or heard, you sever that thread. You reclaim your emotional energy. You quietly but powerfully communicate that your life, your joy, your identity no longer orbit around him. And that, more than any loud goodbye, shakes him in a way he can't easily ignore, because losing access to someone's heart, losing the ability to create emotional ripples in their world, feels like losing a part of yourself you once took for granted. At first, he might not even notice it happening. He might go on with his life thinking you're somewhere, still lingering in the past, still holding space for him. But little by little, it becomes clear you're not reaching out. You're not watching his stories. You're not posting anything aimed at getting his attention. You're simply living, unbothered, free, at peace. And with that, the power dynamic silently shifts. He no longer has the ability to affect your peace of mind. His actions, his words, his life choices no longer dictate how you feel when you wake up in the morning. That realization hits hard because it forces him to confront a reality he might have comfortably avoided. He doesn't get to be part of your story anymore. He doesn't get to be the what if lingering in the background. He doesn't get to be the silent puppeteer pulling emotional strings from afar. You have reclaimed every piece of yourself you once surrendered, not through rage, not through games, but through radical acceptance and quiet strength. There is something deeply unsettling about realizing that someone you once mattered to has detached emotionally. It's not anger, it's not sadness, it's indifference, it's neutrality. And that is the space where true loss lives. Anger still means there's energy. Sadness still means there's connection. But peace? Peace is the absence of attachment. Peace says, I have accepted what happened. I have blessed it for what it taught me, and I have released it without bitterness. When a man feels that shift, he feels the loss of influence. The texts he used to send that once created anxiety now mean nothing. The likes he gives on your pictures no longer send you into a spiral of confusion. The memories he tries to stir up no longer have the same hold. You're not playing the game anymore. You're not even on the field. You're in a new arena entirely, one he has no ticket to enter. And that, more than any revenge or angry words, is what truly disempowers him. Sometimes the loss of power makes him panic quietly. He might test the waters, a casual message, a random emoji, a just thinking about you text at midnight, not because he wants to rebuild something real, but because he wants to know he still matters. He wants to feel that tiny spark of control again. But when you don't bite, when you don't respond with the same urgency or emotional weight he was expecting, he's forced to face the truth. He no longer has the emotional access he once did. And that realization isn't just painful, it's humbling. Because emotional power is not something you can demand, it's something that's given freely, willingly, lovingly. Once it's taken back, once it's reclaimed by the person who gave it, it can't be forced again. It can't be manipulated or coerced. It must be earned through trust, through consistency, through real change. And even then, sometimes the window has closed for good. So if you find yourself in that place, standing in your peace, rooted in your self-worth, unmoved by the echoes of the past, know that your strength is doing more than you realize. Your calm is louder than your anger could ever be. Your refusal to be pulled back into emotional chaos is the most powerful statement you could ever make. You have taken back the most precious thing he once held. Not your love, but your energy, your heart, your spirit. In that loss, he is left to grapple with the true cost of letting you go. When a man sees that you have moved on peacefully, without bitterness, without games, without seeking attention, he is forced, often for the very first time, to recognize your true strength. Not the kind of strength that yells or demands recognition, not the loud, angry strength that tries to prove a point, but the quiet, undeniable, unshakable strength that only reveals itself when someone decides to rise without needing an audience. It's in that calm, in that grace, in that stillness that your real power becomes undeniable. And when he witnesses it, it unsettles him far more than any explosion of emotion ever could. While you were together, he might have underestimated that strength. Maybe he thought your patience was weakness. Maybe he assumed your forgiveness was naivety. Maybe he took your loyalty for granted, thinking it would always be there no matter how he acted. Often, people only truly understand the depth of someone's character when they are no longer the center of that person's world. And so when he sees you glowing, living, thriving without needing to,
Scream it from the rooftops, he's forced to look beyond the surface. He starts to realize that your softness was never weakness. It was discipline. It was resilience. It was a quiet form of courage he didn't know how to value at the time. Strength isn't about who can move on the fastest or who can show off the most online. Strength is about who can face themselves fully, heal deeply, and build quietly. It's about who can choose peace over revenge, growth over bitterness, forgiveness over rage. When you chose not to engage in drama, not to compete for attention, not to try to win the breakup, you revealed a level of maturity and self-respect that cannot be faked. You showed that your sense of worth was never tied to being chosen or validated by someone else. You showed that your happiness was never a gift he had the power to give or take away. And that realization cuts through his defenses, because strength like that exposes the gaps in his own. He may have thought that moving on meant finding someone new, filling the void quickly, distracting himself with temporary highs. But when he sees you move on with dignity, not needing to announce your healing, not needing to advertise your growth, it shines a light on everything he tried to cover up within himself. It forces him to see that true healing doesn't scream, it radiates. It doesn't beg for attention, it quietly commands respect. There's something incredibly humbling about watching someone you once knew intimately become someone you can no longer reach, not because they are bitter, but because they have simply outgrown the space you once held in their life. You didn't build walls, you grew roots. You didn't shut down, you leveled up. And that kind of growth makes a man realize that the person he once had access to has evolved into someone even stronger, even wiser, even more beautiful, someone he might not even recognize anymore. Your true strength is in the way you chose yourself without needing to make it anyone else's failure. It's in the way you continue to love life, to trust yourself, to believe in new beginnings without letting your past define your future. It's in the way you didn't allow pain to turn you bitter, didn't allow disappointment to harden your heart, didn't allow rejection to shrink your dreams. That is the kind of strength that leaves an imprint long after you've walked away. That is the kind of strength that makes a man realize that losing you wasn't just losing a person, it was losing an opportunity to grow alongside someone truly extraordinary. And sometimes that realization comes too late. Sometimes it's only after seeing your peace, your power, your light shining without him that he understands what he lost. Sometimes it's only when he's watching from a distance, no longer a part of your journey, that he fully comprehends that you were not just a chapter in his life. You were a foundation he didn't know how to build upon. You were a mirror showing him not just who you were, but who he had the potential to become if only he had chosen growth over comfort, courage over fear. When you move on peacefully, you become living proof that true strength isn't loud. True strength is in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching, in the choices you make when you have every reason to be bitter but choose to be better. And that kind of strength is unforgettable. That kind of strength doesn't just stay in his mind, it stays in his heart. Long after the noise fades, long after the distractions disappear, your strength remains, a quiet echo, a reminder of the love he once had and the powerful, unstoppable woman he could not hold on to. One of the most unexpected and painful realizations a man faces when he sees you've moved on peacefully is the feeling of being replaced. Not by another man, not by a new relationship, but by something far more powerful, your happiness. He looks at you and realizes that where once there was longing, sadness, or maybe even heartbreak, there's now laughter, purpose, freedom. And slowly it hits him. You didn't need someone else to heal you, to fix you, to fill the space he once occupied. You replaced the pain he left behind with joy he no longer has access to. And that stings deeper than any rivalry ever could. He might have expected you to struggle without him. Maybe he told himself that you wouldn't find your footing, that you would miss him endlessly, that no one could understand or love you the way he did. There's a subtle arrogance that sometimes lingers after a breakup, an assumption that our absence will leave a void too large to fill. But when you chose happiness, not out of spite, not out of anger, but out of genuine healing, you broke that illusion. You showed that your life could be full, vibrant, even more beautiful without the relationship he thought defined so much of your joy. And it's not just that you look happy, it's that you are happy. Happiness that isn't a performance, isn't a revenge story, but is rooted in deep, quiet fulfillment. You're building a life that excites you, nurturing passions you may have set aside, finding strength in solitude and excitement in new beginnings. You laugh without hesitation. You glow without trying. You dream bigger, walk lighter, smile wider. And the contrast between who you were when you were tied to him and who you are now, free, self-assured, content, makes him realize that he wasn't your source of joy. Maybe he was a chapter of it, a momentary contributor to it, but he was never the foundation. That realization unsettles the ego because it forces him to see that the story he told himself, that you needed him more than he needed you, wasn't true. Maybe you loved him deeply. Maybe you fought for him harder than anyone ever had. Maybe you poured into the relationship with your whole heart. But now, standing in your peace, thriving in your growth, you show him that your happiness was never tied to his presence. Is within you all along, just waiting for the right moment to fully emerge. And here's the quiet truth. Happiness is the ultimate replacement. It's not dramatic. It's not confrontational. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists, bright and undeniable, where sadness and longing once lived. Happiness says, I have survived you. I have healed from you. I have thanked you for what you taught me, and I have moved beyond you. And there is no greater replacement, no sharper sting than realizing that your absence did not diminish someone, it set them free. Times he'll try to convince himself otherwise. He might search for cracks in your peace, moments of weakness to reassure himself that you still miss him, that you still wish things had been different. He might stalk your social media, listen for your name in mutual circles, or send those late night messages hoping to rekindle old emotions. Not because he wants to rebuild what was lost, but because he wants to know that he still has a place in your heart. But when he finds nothing, no desperate posts, no passive-aggressive quotes, no breadcrumbs of lingering hope, he's faced with the undeniable truth. Your happiness has filled the space he thought would remain empty without him. This doesn't mean you've forgotten. True happiness after heartbreak doesn't erase the past. It honors it without being anchored to it. You remember the love, the lessons, the laughter, but you no longer let it define your worth or your future. You carry the memories with grace, but leave the pain behind. You honor the journey, but you choose your own destination now. And in doing so, you embody a kind of power that can't be faked or forced. A power that speaks louder than any words ever could. In the end, he has to sit with the knowledge that while he may have once been part of your world, he is no longer necessary for your light to shine. Your happiness replaced the need for closure, for validation, for answers. It replaced the endless questions, the sleepless nights, the aching for what might have been. And in its place stands a version of you that is whole, radiant, and untouchable in your peace. And that pure, unshakable happiness is the greatest replacement of all.